Dr. Stephanie Bennett, and I'm here to speak with you today about one of my very favorite subjects, motherhood. Actually, wider than that, parenthood. There are some very specific things that can help us to become really great parents. And I don't know it all, but I've raised 3 of my own beautiful children. And I would just like to share with you a few of those things today. I've thought about 3 challenges that I want to share with you about parenting and 3 opportunities that go right along with it. So the first challenge is something that if you are a parent right now, you know that this is true. Parenting is hard work. That's a challenge. So we see all the little Instagram pictures, Junior starting to crawl, a sweet layette set laid out there on our friend's Instagram or our Facebook page. We saw all these great pictures, family pictures with the children or with the baby. Beautiful. And there is such joy in parenting, but it's work. It's hard work. I hesitate to tell people that and talk about that much because the other side of that is that parenting is so beautiful and so wonderful and so wonderfully life-changing. There's so much joy in it that you really don't know about that joy. You can't feel that joy until you do have a child that you're raising of your own. And so I hesitate to go on that, we might call it a little dark side of that challenge, that parenting is work. But if you have a hard time saying that out loud or thinking that because you think it's negative or derogatory or something, I want to just free you up right now, okay? It's okay to know that parenting is work. If you are a mother and you are staying at home with your children, or if you're a father and you're staying at home with your children, that's an even bigger challenge. Whether you go outside to work and get 2 paychecks, or one stays home and takes the bulk of the responsibility for the child, either way, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of sacrifice, and it's a lot of joy. The second challenge, so that's the first challenge, dealing with that aspect, that it's work, that it's hard work. The second challenge is isolation. Isolation, you say? If you're not a parent and you're thinking about having a child or you're planning to have a child, maybe isolation never occurred to you. But what happens is the child, especially that first year, 6 months to a year, needs so much attention and so much regularity, so rhythm of naps and sleep schedules and all that kind of thing. And you're not getting a lot of sleep. Parents aren't getting a lot of sleep, especially if you're the mother and you're nursing. Not a lot of sleep. So it's very easy, even if you're a very outgoing person, to kind of pull back and inadvertently, not on purpose, not intentionally, pull yourself back into yourself and into your apartment or into your house. You get the child ready, you get her little bag ready or his bag ready, you make their lunches, you plan time out for the park, you're going to see a friend, it's going to be a wonderful play date, it's taking you 2 hours to get the breakfast ready and cleaned up and the children ready and cleaned up, and you've got everything all packed, and then on the way out you look in the mirror and you say, oh my gosh, I forgot to brush my hair, or I didn't brush my teeth, or I didn't shower. Sometimes we parents just shrug our shoulders and say it's not worth going out. Let me just postpone this or plan less outings, and we start to isolate. Not good for the soul, not good for health. That's a challenge. There are ways around that. There are ways to address that. But today I just want to talk to you briefly about the challenges. The third thing I want to talk to you about today is a challenge that I'm simply calling self-neglect. Self-neglect I inferred with talking about isolation. But self-neglect is much more than just forgetting to take time to brush your hair or your own personal hygiene. Self-neglect is a challenge because as parents, we always seem to put the children first. They're dependent upon us. We're responsible for their lives. So if they've got to go to the doctors or they need new shoes or they are getting signed up for a certain camp, or they're going to a play date, our life begins to revolve around raising them and training them. And sometimes we can forget about our own physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health. We neglect to make that doctor's appointment or a follow-up appointment that we need. We neglect to eat something healthy or wholesome, not because we want to forget it or neglect ourselves, but because we're so busy and it's just easier to throw a fast food in there in the microwave or grab a bunch of something that we would rather not eat or that we know better. We neglect ourselves by not exercising, by not taking the time to very carefully and specifically work our body. Our body, we need energy. And sometimes we're so dog tired as parents that the last thing we want to do is get up and take that run or go to the gym or pump that iron. It's important to stop that idea right there and start taking care of ourselves and work on taking care of our physical and our mental and our spiritual well-being as a regular feature in our life, and not just for you, not just for us in our health, but this is a twofold, it's like a two-edged sword. When we don't take care of ourselves, when we start to do that self-neglect, guess what? The children are going to learn that behavior. So we're doing all we can to pour into them, raise them up right. But you know what? Children learn what they live. Yeah. Once when I was in the doctor's office, when the kids were little, I was waiting for the doctor to come in and examine the children, and I was staring at the wall, and he had this lovely little poem there, and it was entitled "Children Learn What They Live," and the last line on it was "Children learn what they live." And so, messy, dusty table, and a shower that needs cleaning, and a shirt that needs pressing, these all can wait. Children learn what they live. They will learn how to do everything as you teach them, but they pick up things as we model them for them. So those are three main challenges. There's many other challenges with parenthood, but sometimes I think it's important just to acknowledge the challenge, because in our media-saturated society, we are inundated with images, pictures of perfection, or ideal parents, ideal engagements, ideal marriage ceremonies, ideal parties, ideal place settings. And we see the pictures of these things coming on our news feed all the time. I don't think anyone's trying to pretend necessarily. I don't think everyone's trying to pretend that their lives are idyllic. But if that's what we see all the time, we kind of can get a feeling that that's the norm. And that's what our life should be. No one's life is idyllic. And the ideal is the ideal. So we need to remember that the challenges of parenthood are real, and to not get under them and not let guilt lay on our shoulders. Along with the challenges, I'd like to talk about 3 opportunities very quickly. Many more opportunities in motherhood and fatherhood than just these 3. But very quickly, I'd like to say one of the opportunities we get as a parent that is hard to find in other places, in other ways, even in other relationships, is something called self-awareness or self-knowledge. We think we know ourselves. We hear ourselves. We watch our behavior. We know how we feel. We know what our attitudes are. But very often, since we are ourselves and we grow up with ourselves, we become blind to attitudes and mindsets that are not exactly healthy, not exactly life-giving, not helpful. So the opportunity when you're a parent is, because you're so immersed in these challenges, all of a sudden you might hear your inner voice cursing or rising up in anger, or maybe it comes out loud, and it stuns you that you could say that nasty thing or that unkind thing to your spouse or to your child, because you're pressed, because the tension is there, because the pressure's there. Well, it's an opportunity to step up in with that self-awareness, to grow and begin to transform. Opportunity number 2 is play. What do I mean by that? Well, usually by the time people are in their mid-20s, sometimes even 20 or before that, We lose our sense of play. And having children, you can get down on the floor. Perfect excuse. Not that you need an excuse, but you can get down on the floor. You can play hide and seek. You can bounce the ball. You can play, tag outside, foursquare, and have a lot of laughs and wonderful memories of your own childhood. Get back into play, reactivating that childhood innocence in yourself. It's a good thing. And then the final thing is to model or modeling. And I'm not talking about fashion modeling. Though you never know, maybe you're a fashion model or you'll have children who will do some modeling. I'm talking about back to children learn what they live. We have an opportunity because we know that children will model our own behavior, that as we pour into them and invest our time, our energy, our best selves into these beautiful little beings, that they are watching. And we have an opportunity to step up and say, I may not feel like responding this way or doing this, but my children are watching, and I'm going to step up and I'm going to model good behavior. And I'm going to pray that God gives me grace to walk in this in greater and greater authenticity, to grow into it. When you fail, when I fail, when our limitations pour through our skin, when our sins tell a tale out of school, and we see all the ways that we are imperfect creatures and imperfect parents, remember this. Love covers a multitude of sins. And if your children know that they are loved, you're going to be okay. The challenges and opportunities of parenthood are many, but it's the best job in the world. Remember that love covers a multitude of sins. Our limitations, our weaknesses, our imperfections. They're there. They're there. And they're a part of everyone's parenting. As long as you love and your children know that they're loved, you're going to be fine. Rise up to the challenges and opportunities of parenthood. Thanks for being with me today. This is Dr. Stephanie Bennett.